Hi, hello, good afternoon, everybody. It's much too big room for such a conversation, but okay, I think we'll manage. I want to welcome a lot of friends in the room and all of you who wants to listen to a few words on the European space strategy, what we have achieved so far, and what are the perspectives for European Union. I'm really happy to participate this Congress. This is an important place to be for all of those who are dealing with the space policy on many levels. I am a European Commissioner, so work in the European Commission, and part of my portfolio is dedicated to the space policy in Europe. As you maybe know, just for the start, to say a few words, Europe and many of its nations has always been an important space actor. Since 1975, European space nations were organized the work around the European Space Agency. This is one institution. And as a European Union, we formally got our role, albeit our programs are older, since 2009. Currently, we have accumulated budget of 7 billion euro a year, and with this budget, Europe is a second space power in the world. And what we want to do and what we intend to do is to preserve this position, but also to strengthen it. As you may be aware, this is almost the end of the 5 years mandate of this Commission. It's been prolonged a little bit. But it's very important to say that it's been a very eventful 5 years for the EU as a whole, but for me personally and for the European Commission in the sector of the space policy, it was not less exciting. Let me mention for the beginning again that between 6 to 9% of our economy depends on space, so the European Union, 28 member states. The European satellite manufacturing industry holds around 33% of the open world markets. We have dynamic downstream services sector with a large number of SMEs. Many of our public services, such as weather forecasting, emergency services, forestry monitoring, civil protection, are dependent on space. Space has a direct impact on our citizens, for instance, on pollution alerts, navigation, connectivity in remote areas. And space is also essential, and it's a growing connection and growing subject also and topic for the European Union. Space is essential for our autonomy, security, and defense, as 95% of our military platforms depends on space for navigation, communication, and surveillance. So as I look back over the last 5 years, me, but also we, I think, in the European Union, we have every reason to be proud of what was achieved, either through European Space Agency programs such as Rosetta, Bepi Colombo, and many others, but also with our European Union space programs. And these, I always underline this, these are the clear European collective achievements. We have two programs, Copernicus and Galileo, that are world-class infrastructures, among the best systems in respectively the Earth observation and the satellite positioning. Both of them are operational now. They demonstrate the ability and innovative capacity of the European space industries. With Copernicus, we are monitoring Earth. 7 Sentinel satellites are in orbit and 6 services that provide data and products on the state of the Earth's environment and also human activity. So the Copernicus delivers data, delivers services, but also sets global standards by offering the most accurate climate and environmental data. Thanks to this, we can check on a really daily basis the state of our planet, its many ecosystems, land masses, atmosphere, oceans. These findings are based on the computer-generated analysis using billions of measurements from satellites, ships, aircrafts, and weather stations around the world. The value of Copernicus is for now clearly recognized, and the fact that so many countries want to have cooperation arrangement with us on Copernicus is really proof of its attractiveness. Our objective is to maintain EU's autonomous capacity to observe the Earth and to position Copernicus in support to Europe's security and Europe's leadership to fight climate change. As you know, this is and will be for sure the top priority for this European Commission, for the next European Commission, and for European Union as a whole. With the second program, Galileo, we are building in cooperation with GPS system with a target precision of around 20 centimeters. We have now 26 satellites in orbit, and Galileo is establishing itself as a landmark, giving Europe an autonomous system of positioning. There are now more than 1 billion users. We've been celebrating a month ago 1 billion users of Galileo around the world. All the major mobile phone manufacturers have activated Galileo in the latest models. All major airports are using a combination of Galileo and EGNOS to ensure a safe landing of planes, even in the most difficult conditions. Since November last year, Galileo is the first and only non-US satellite navigation system authorized for use in the United States. But of course, having said that, we should not excuse ourselves from really moving forward and going further. Seen from Europe, the world is changing. The space sector is undergoing massive changes and massive rapid changes worldwide. So we in Europe reacted. 3 years ago, I presented first ever European space strategy, as is in the title of this presentation. Following this, in June 2018, I presented the new 16 billion euro EU space program with an increased budget, but also clear, and this is very important, clear strategical goals. Since then, the programs has been negotiated, agreed by the Member State, by the European Parliament. The program will be complemented by the upcoming negotiations on European Space Agency programs late November this year, so it's in a month's time. So we are ready in the European Union, in Europe, with a new legal framework, a new budget, new strategic objectives to continue and develop our space strategy. The main objective of this 7 years programs are, first, ensuring continuity of the investments towards Galileo, EGNOS, and Copernicus to prepare already now for the next generation of both programs. Second point is to ensure the evolution towards new needs, such as mentioned above, climate change, security, Internet of Things. For that, Copernicus must ensure Europe's strategic political leadership in fighting climate change. Galileo must become an enabler of Internet of Things, connected cars, and app economy. And both of them must participate to Europe's security even more than before. And the third point, it is the adaptation of the EU space sector to the new realities, so security, strategic, and economic. A few words on security. We will progressively launch 2 new initiatives: Space Situational Awareness System to avoid collision and debris on key satellites, and Governmental Satellite Communication, GovSatcom, reliable and secure satellite communication system. Of course, I keep repeating this, but there is no space policy for Europe without autonomous access to space. And this is why it is the first time in the EU text we put legal provision to support European access to space. We are ready to aggregate our institutional demand to support ground infrastructures and deployment of new technologies. This is a very far-reaching provision for us, which is the answer to the call to support European launchers. And of course, very importantly, I want to mention the economic dimension. The space sector is going, as I said, through a very fast and profound industrialization process. We observe lower cost of the accessing and using space, we are also moving from single unit to large series manufacturing, for example, from one-off satellites units to mega constellations. And of course, this also has a very strong effect on the launching business and on the costs. To face these challenges, we need to promote a European approach to the new space. It is what we are going to do. It is looking critically at our system of support for space innovation at large, space entrepreneurship and space startups. It is about creating the conditions for a true European industrial policy in space. And this is about making sure we are not missing the next disruptive technology. Europe is now acting intensively to become an attractive space innovation hub. This is why I have been pushing for the space program to give us the flexibilities we need. For example, we need to make our own public procurement much more open and ready to take higher risks. In the future, the approach should shift towards procuring the service rather than the hardware. And this approach is already partly used in Copernicus and GovSatcom, so our new initiative is largely based on this new philosophy. And we need to develop a first contract approach or as we call it, ANCO customer strategy for space startups. So they can benefit earlier from contracts with European Space Agency or with the EU. We need also to learn in Europe how to shorten the development cycle drastically, even if it means taking more risk. On the very specific point on access to finance, broadly and widely discussed in Europe, there is a venture capital money in Europe. We simply need to use it better. I personally strongly believe that in the medium term, Europe will need a large European space equity fund, which could focus on increasing the size of the existing VC funds targeting space startups, investing equity into potential space European champions, and attracting private equity investments such as patient investors or corporate equity. The space programs and the new InvestEU program, so we will have two sources of financing. Now with those two, we have the legal basis and the instruments to act. And to complete this, we are also reorganizing our administrative structure to respond better to the needs of the space sector. As you maybe know, under the new Commission, it was announced there will be a dedicated department, as we call it, Director General for Defense Industry and Space. And it really shows that European leaders are recognizing the importance of the space as a strategic asset for Europe. This will be completely new ministry, Director General in the European Commission. Now, let me give you some only few, but more general reflection. First, I strongly believe that space and its potential for our economy, for our society, for human progress is not yet fully understood by a large majority of our population. Debating space is confined mostly to the specialists when it should be about the future of humanity, about our future. So I think we need to be much clearer as political leader as well to define a common vision. This is the case globally, but of course in particular, and it's very close to what I'm doing in Europe. For that reason, I've been advocating really many times for the last few years for the creation of the European Space Council on the model of what exists in the US. I hope that this idea can be taken up in the near future. Second, the link between space and defense will increase. From the industrial perspective, the military needs will soon run the disruption of technologies, for instance, on Earth point-to-point space flights. Additionally, the question of technological autonomy is really a key. I'm glad that the technological sovereignty appears very high on the agenda of the future Commission. This is a very important shift of the position for Europe, one that I strongly welcome following the work that I did with my colleagues promoting the European Defence Fund. And third, we must build Europe in the as the most attractive place for the space entrepreneurs. And for this, we need to be innovative, we need to be supportive for disruptive ideas. If we take the United States as an example, entrepreneurs backed by the tech Silicon Valley financing are now highly active in the space sector. Such approach and such successes are about deliberate industrial policies, and I'm calling Europe to do exactly the same in its own way. Of course, we started with the European space strategy, with our space programs, but of course it needs to be pushed further. So I'm happy that I was able to present to you our achievements and preparation in Europe for the future. But one thing is very clear for me, and let me conclude with this. Space is definitely for everyone. So we need to work globally to address challenges in a collaborative and open way, because we also know in Europe that the basis for space is cooperation, be it at the European level or beyond. In Europe, we cherish the cooperation culture. This is very much the underlying foundation of the space strategy for Europe, and our EU space programs will continue to provide benefits for beyond the space sector and beyond Europe, as in Africa, the Arctic, Asia, also in the United States and Canada. So I want again to call on us, everyone dealing with the space sector, for working together, and with this I thank for your attention. Thank you very much.